It's Tuesday. It must be Acre Pro. Buy, sell. I'm joined by Tom Dienhart. This is kind of our chance to have a little conversation about the wonderful world of Purdue football and what is going to happen and what we think might happen. And they don't hold us accountable, though, Tom. I don't think we come back and repeat these and say, well, what we were right on and what we were wrong. At least I know we have some viewers out there that like this show. We appreciate that, but they haven't counted up what we've been right. But we want to thank our good friends at Acre Pro Midwest Farm Group. When it comes to land sales, it pays to have experts in your corner. It always does. With decades of experience in Indiana agriculture, no one knows the market better, whether you're doing a 1031 exchange or simply buying and selling farmland. Your local Acre Pro agent will walk the land with you and ensure the deal is done right. We appreciate Kyle Spray and Company, all that they do with that. Visit acrepro.com or call 765-587-3185 and talk to your local their local land expert today. All right, Tom. Who would have bought and sold that Purdue would get 2 wins on the road? And the Boilermakers did with Minnesota and Maryland, now Nebraska up there. And there's a lot of interesting storylines this week. You know, starting with the Purdue, this will be the interim head coach tour for Purdue the next 2 weeks as the Boilermakers take on Nebraska and then go to Wisconsin. I'm going to start with a lot of talk, and you've written a lot about how well Purdue has done in the rush defense game. Not allowed a 100-yard rusher. Purdue has really clamped down in the run game. Nebraska's got somebody that can do that against Purdue, though he only had 47 yards. Grant last week in the Huskers win at Rutgers. Are you buying or selling that Purdue will hold not only it's Anthony Grant, right? Yeah. Or Nebraska under 100 yards. Yeah, I'll give you 2 options there. 100-yard all told in the rush defense, and then the 100-yard individual rusher. What do you see?
Yeah, they're only allowing 97 yards rushing a game as a team. This is what really amazes me is Purdue is number 1 in the Big Ten in fewest long rushing yards.
Yeah.
The fewest long rushing plays allowed of 10 yards or more and 20 yards or more. They've only allowed 1 run of over 20 yards this year. Unbelievable. And they've only allowed 11 runs of over 10 yards. And both those are the lowest figures in the Big Ten this year. So they are not getting gassed for big plays in the ground game. That can be so demoralizing, so deflating, and rip apart a defense. Anytime you're getting run on, it's demoralizing and deflating. And Purdue has been good against the run. I know maybe they haven't played a who's who of great running backs so far. They're going to see a good one this weekend. Again, Grant's number 4 in the Big Ten in rushing. I don't think, Alan, he's going to hit the century mark, though. I guess I'm buying the fact that Purdue is going to keep that string intact of not yet allowing an individual rush for 100 yards in a game on them this year. Bigger challenges loom. Just the week after this, they got to go to Wisconsin and play Braylon Allen. He's a terrific running back. There's still a date with Illinois' Chase Brown, who I think may be leading the country in rushing. So there's some good running backs still on the to-do list for Purdue. Again, taking nothing away from Grant. He's very good for Nebraska. Has a great story. Was at Florida State, then was at a junior college. But Alan, I don't think he's going to be the first to turn the trick on Purdue's defense this year.
Yeah, that has been an amazing story. Really, Purdue's one of the best rush defenses it's had in its program for a long, long time. And that's always been, kind of a bugaboo of Purdue football, being able to stop the run. I'm going to ask you just in terms of scheme and everything else, not necessarily a buy-sell question. Why is that? What has been so good? I mean, even without Jalen Graham, now I understand Jalen Graham came in and made a big difference last week against Maryland, but is it just that physical defensive line presence in your view? What has really changed? Because you don't have, I know George Karlaftis, but he was a big factor, certainly in the pass rush game and Purdue's ability to do a lot of things in the defensive line, but it's been a real story that they've been as good as they've been.
Yeah, we've asked Ron English about that and some players about it, and they just talk about how they drill it, how they drill their run fits and sealing up gaps. They've been working on this stuff since the summer, obviously. So I don't think there's anything real magical. They are well coached. I think The depth on the defensive line certainly helps. That's been well documented too, how deep that Purdue defensive line is, Alan. I mean, they're comfortable playing upwards of 10 or 11 guys every game. And to have those fresh bodies in there, especially when you get into the second half and you're playing these physical Big Ten West teams like Minnesota, later on, Wisconsin, physical, Iowa, physical, Illinois, physical, Syracuse was physical. So I think, again, the depth on that D line has played a big role too. And in this team, and this defense in particular, being so effective at limiting the opposition's ground game.
Yeah, well said. And I think that's been a storyline. Now I'm going to throw one because one we didn't prep for before: offensive line. Purdue's down to 6 bodies. I think you've been counting. All right, buy or sell that there'll be somebody else outside of that 6 that will see snaps on Saturday. Now we're not banking on injuries, but just talking about what Jeff Brom has to do to keep that offensive line doing what he has to do. And if so, you know this personnel about as well as anybody. Who in the heck is that going to be that's going to work their way into the rotation if that comes to pass?
I think they're going to say their prayers, Alan. They're going to hope for good health, because when the season started, there were 8 linemen. I know they were comfortable playing. If they had to go beyond those 8, there were some concerns on the preparedness of those players. Now they're down to 6, so we're starting to walk a little tightrope here as far as the depth goes. I guess, who knows? I mean, I guess I'll say at this point, though, I'm buying the fact that they're going to be able to get by another week with just these 6 linemen. Now, the one guy off the bench is Sione Finau, the transfer from Florida International guard. He's playing more and more, obviously, in recent weeks. If they have to bring people off the bench to help, they got 4 guys I think they're comfortable with. Josh Kaltenberger is one of those guys I think they're comfortable playing. He's a sort of a center guard. Jared Byzinski, he's from Berea, Ohio. He's a guard. He's just kind of a big, strong guy who can't play on the edge, but he's an interior guy. They like the Nayland Fox up from Pontiac, Michigan. He's a big tackle, number 71. He's a guy I think they would have some faith in putting in. And then honestly, Alan, I think the 4th guy's, from what I gather, is a true freshman. The kid from Louisiana, number 55, Malachi Presidio, I think is his name. He lacks ideal dimensions. He's not super tall. I've been told they sort of envision him being like Kirk Barron. They want him to be their future center. Again, not a real super tall guy, but a guy who loves football. And he's going to be a contributor at some point. But even as a true freshman, Alan, I get the sense, if they really had to, he's a guy that they would feel okay if they had to tap him on the shoulder and have him go into a game and play now.
All right, well analyzed, and it will be interesting to see how that plays out. Again, we're not trying to handicap injuries. We know that Jeff Brom and company would be a lot more comfortable if they had 8 guys. Of course, losing Daniel Johnson for the rest of the season, also a big blow. In addition to Cam Craig.
Real quick, one move they have made.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how ready he is to help it, but they have moved DJ Washington back to the offensive line. Of course, they moved him to the D line last year. I always thought that was kind of a curious move anyway, when they didn't have much depth on the O line. But anyway, DJ Washington's now back on the O line where he was for his first 4 years on campus. Again, Alan, this happens soon of late. So I'm not sure how quickly he could help. But you wouldn't think it would take him too long to get back up to speed, since he spent so much time on that side of the ball. But he's a guy, I think, within maybe a week or 2 that, they probably would be okay throwing out there if they had to, a guard.
All right. And of course, Eric Miller, they've got some guys moving parts, it can go both sides. That does help with the permutation, so to speak, of who plays where. That does give them a little bit of flexibility of moving some guys around the line.
Yeah, you're right. Marcus Bowe can play guard and tackle. You talked about Eric Miller last week. He flipped from left tackle and started at right tackle. And they had Musa start at left tackle last week. So those are the guys. I think Musa can play both tackle spots too, but really the only guy I think can really go from guard to tackle is Bo. Spencer Holstead and Finau are really just guards at heart, and so there's not quite as much flexibility there with guys being able to play different positions between guard and tackle. There's some guys that can play guard and center. So again, they're doing the best they can, and they know what they're up against. And like I said, you just hope everybody can stay healthy. Alan McGalley with 6 games left, I think is a pretty lofty hope if you think nobody else is going to get dinged up front.
Yeah, you got 2, certainly Wisconsin next week, a physical team, but also Nebraska's got some talent, and it is Big Ten football, as we keep saying, and it just makes it harder and harder to keep guys healthy from that standpoint.
Remember, too, they have the off week after Wisconsin.
And that's what they need to get there.
Yeah.
They need to get there intact and then be able to finish up with those games. The November games, the 4 November games would be a good thing from that standpoint. All right, let's see. I want to get to another one, a buy sell. We talked about Charlie Jones with 3 consecutive games of under 100 yards, right?
Yeah.
I want to do this as a double pronged one. Charlie Jones over 100, and between Payne Durham and Charlie Jones, who has the most receiving yards this week?
Yeah, first, just real
quick.
We're
going to say, are you going to buy or sell Charlie Jones for both of those?
I'm gonna buy Charlie finding back in over 100 here. I think it's gonna happen. Nebraska's secondary is not good. By the end of that game last Friday night at Rutgers, they had a 7th-year senior, a 25-year-old guy playing one cornerback spot. They had a true freshman playing the other spot. They're really struggling on the back end. I think Purdue's going to be able to take advantage of some of their deficiencies. And Aidan's going to have a big game, and Charlie's going to be the benefactor of that. Just real quick, the first 3 games for Charlie Jones, 32 catches, 474 yards, and 5 touchdowns. The last 3 games for Charlie Jones, 18 catches, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Allen last week in College Park, Maryland, just 3 catches for 15 yards. So obviously we all see the trend there. I'm sure defenses are now obviously very highly aware of Charlie, trying to defend him as much as they can. But again, from everything I hear too, Alan, he's not healthy. He's playing with some lower body issues, I believe, and probably something that's not going to get better until after the season. He's not practicing a whole heck of a lot, which is going to impact you on Saturdays too. They just want to get him to Saturdays and game days, right? And so I guess he's battling through a lot right now. I think that's also one reason why maybe his numbers are starting to taper off a little bit here. And he plays a lot of snaps now. If you look at the snap counts, it's obscene for a wide receiver to play as many snaps as he does.
Yeah, and certainly a big part of that offense, especially early in the year, and they need him to get back to that. Aidan OConnell has led Purdue, and we talked about his career. In fact, his first real big moment was against Nebraska in 2019, led the Boilermakers to a game-winning touchdown drive, 6 of 7 in that last drive. David Bell, I think, had the end around or whatever the play was that Purdue won that game. I believe that this is either the 5th or 6th time, we got to get our research done right, that Aidan OConnell led Purdue to a 4th quarter come-from-behind victory. Of course, against Maryland, he got that done. They never trailed against Minnesota, so that doesn't count. You go back to Tennessee, you go back to Northwestern in 2019. He had a bunch of them in 2019 as well. And again, with that Nebraska game and the Iowa game in 2020 before he was injured. Very impressive trait for him. And I know we debate whether, not debate, but he may not have been 100%. But I'm going to ask you this because he's had some big games and Purdue's had some big passing games over against Nebraska. Is 375 yards. I'm going to put that as the buy sell. Where do you see that? Can he beat 375 this weekend?
I'm buying it. I think Purdue's going to put up some big numbers on Saturday. Again, I talked about some of the defensive issues of Nebraska. Remember, interim head coach Mickey Joseph fired the defensive coordinator 3 weeks ago after the Oklahoma game. They have gotten a little bit better on defense with Bill Bush now running the scheme. Sort of simplified things, it sounds like, but still the personnel, it's always about personnel, right? I think even if Charlie's not 100%, Purdue's got enough personnel to make Nebraska pay. And again, that's a Nebraska defense. Now look at the numbers. They are not good, just not a good defense. So I'm buying that. I think Aidan goes big. He's going to be healthier. He's going to be another week removed from that, what's believed to be a rib injury he suffered at Syracuse. You mentioned Payne Durham a few moments ago, probably coming off his best game of the year. He's going to be a matchup issue as well. He's dialed in, and maybe we'll see a little bit more of TJ Sheffield. He had a nice catch late in that game last Saturday. So yeah, I'm buying it. I think it's Saturday night's going to be a big night for Aidan OConnell.
Yeah, would make for a big, it's certainly a big offensive in front of a capacity crowd, and what will probably be it will be a raucous crowd as that game kicks off. Without question, it's going to be that type of environment in Ross-Ade Stadium with a capacity crowd. All right, one of the we do have a sellout already for this game as well. Let's talk about sellouts. Buy, sell that Purdue will have another sellout, and probably be the Iowa game if they have the chance to do that. Maybe a silly question because we don't know what the situation is going to be, but certainly impressive. This game's been so, and that has something to do with Nebraska bringing some folks as well. But really, Purdue's fan following has been really pretty terrific. If you go back and look at sellouts against Penn State, technically, I think a sellout against FAU because you had over 57,000 for that one as well. It's been pretty impressive, the fan following.
Yeah, it has. They've made most games have been at night. I think the Indiana State game was a 4 p.m. start, but the other ones were after 6. So maybe that has something to do with it too. I think fans tend to like the night games. They can tailgate all day and then go to the ball game later on. And I think they're all going to be in their full-throated glory, if you will. There's a lot of excitement. I'm not breaking news to you or whoever's watching this Zoomcast, but there's a lot of excitement around Purdue football right now. And Alan, you've been around a long time, and man, I tell you what, there's nothing, at least in my mind, I'll speak for myself, there's nothing better when a football team is playing good on a college campus in the fall. The energy, I think, that resonates throughout the campus. Fridays before a home game, there's an electricity, I think, in the air, the anticipation, the excitement, and that sort of environment, I think, is cultivated with this year's team and how it's playing right now at 4-2. Alan, they're trying to win 4 games in a row for the first time since 2018, and we know they're tied for first in the Big Ten West. We know people are saying good things about Purdue nationwide. They look like they have a legit chance to maybe actually win the West. I know I'm getting way ahead of myself, but it's all that speculation, conjecture, and positivity, I think, are going to lead to a great electric atmosphere Saturday night. And not like you, Alan, I think if they do sell out another game, it will be that Iowa game. Who knows with Northwestern, Alan, if they're really rolling, people love a winner, and they could pack the place for that game on November 19th against the Wildcats. Again, if Purdue's really playing well and really in the thick of maybe making a push to win the division title.
Yeah, no doubt. If there's a lot to play for that weekend, anything can happen. All right, buying or selling, is Illinois Purdue's biggest threat in the Big Ten West right now?
I guess you have to say yes, right? Illinois, Nebraska, and Purdue are all 2-1. Iowa's got a couple of league losses, and now I think who knows about Wisconsin. I hate to give up on the Badgers just yet, but I am going to say it's Illinois. They've been one of the best stories nationally this year. The job Bielema has done. He has that new defensive coordinator, Ryan Walters, and they've been really special on defense. And offensively, I mentioned Chase Brown earlier. Brett Bielema, he wants to pound the rock. He wants to shove it down your throat. And he's got a running back that's able to do that. And a nice transfer quarterback in Tommy DeVito. But he got hurt last week, Alan. I'm not sure.
Right, up in the air.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was this week. Up in the air. So they have Arthur Sikowski from Rutgers. So we'll have to see where they're at with their quarterback spot. But for now, I'm going to say, yeah, it is the Illini. I never would have dreamt. It's so crazy how life changes and evolves, but I never would have dreamt in August if you'd have told me that game in Champaign on November 12th, could determine who's going to be the front runner in the Big Ten West, I'd have told you were crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting if you look at the schedules, and it's kind of fun to do that, but it's, Illinois has got Minnesota at home this week. They have to go to Michigan the week after the Purdue game, because you want to look at Purdue and say, can the Boilermakers withstand another loss and still win the division? Well, if they lose to Illinois, obviously they would lose the head-to-head unless the Illini have 3 conference losses. So that's why it's really interesting. Minnesota has to go to Penn State. Obviously Purdue has the advantage on Minnesota right now, but right now Minnesota's only got 1 conference loss. So that's where it gets really interesting. I think this week, I would agree that Illinois just made because they're playing at home, but I think it really a lot rides on that game, because Minnesota only has to play at Penn State, but the rest of their schedule is winnable. They got to go to Wisconsin too, and maybe Wisconsin. It's hard to put Wisconsin as the sleeper, but Wisconsin is a team that's got a lot. Obviously the tradition of being very, very successful in that division for years and years and years, and that has got me thinking that the Badgers are going to be a team that could be in there as well. So it will be fun to watch that, because Wisconsin has a schedule also, again, looking ahead, and it's a funny thing to do that, but they've got Minnesota at home. They do have to go to Iowa, and they have to go to Nebraska, but they've got Purdue, and they have Maryland at home after Michigan, a trip to Michigan State this week. So going to be interesting, as we say, but again, the Badgers do have 2 conference losses, so Purdue's got to jump on them, but that game next week also could become I think they're all, when you try to win a division championship, you got to win, you got to step up, and will 3 losses end up being it? If it is, there'll be a lot of tiebreakers in play to try to figure out who the winner is. So
Illinois is a bad loss. They lost to Indiana, so they already have that strike against them. I think that they don't have really wiggle room after losing that ball game. And then Wisconsin for Purdue, Alan, it's well documented. I think it's 15 wins in a row for the Badgers. Purdue's last win against that program was actually in Madison in 2003. So just a lot of sordid history, recent history for Purdue against the Badgers. It would be so cathartic for Purdue and its fans if they could actually get a win over these Badgers. And the timing would be great. Maybe it's a win that would punctuate a 4-0 October round, make Purdue 6-2. Heading into their off week, and boy, 6-2 going into your off week. You look at that November schedule, it's filled with opportunity. That would be the ideal situation, obviously, for the Boilermakers, but they got to get to Nebraska first, obviously.
Yeah, no doubt, and you got to be careful now. The Wisconsin Purdue game, by the way, 3:30 p.m. on ESPN for those of you planning ahead. I'm going to throw one last one, just a quick one. Will Purdue be a favorite against Wisconsin? Tell me that. You're an odds maker. You're the Swami.
I'm really not much about the gambling or betting.
No, I know you're not. I know.
I think they're going to be an underdog. I guess I'm selling the idea that they'll be favored. I don't think Purdue will be favored in Madison. No, I don't. Even if Purdue wins this weekend, I still think the Badgers are at least going to be a 3-point favorite at home, if not maybe a touchdown favorite. I just don't think. Again, this isn't a vintage Wisconsin team, but it's still pretty solid, Alan. And I think they play somebody this weekend. I think they're supposed to beat too.
Michigan State at Michigan State.
There you go. So they're going to be 2-0 under Jim Leonard. So they're going to have some momentum coming back home off the road with 2 wins. So no, I think for sure Purdue's going to be an underdog there by at least a field goal, maybe as much as a touchdown. Who knows, Alan? Maybe even 10 points.
Yeah. All right. If I keep letting this go on, I'll keep throwing silly questions at you. But no, I always appreciate it. We always have fun doing this because we kind of come up with things as we go along. And Tom, I appreciate your time and always your expertise as well. I want to thank Acre Pro Midwest Farm Group. With decades of experience, in Indiana agriculture. Visit acrepro.com or call 765-587-3185 and talk to your local land expert today. So again, we'll be back next week, and we'll have try to conjure up some fun things when it comes to Purdue, Wisconsin. If you're a Purdue fan, you hope you're riding that 4-game win streak heading into Wisconsin, and that would make a very interesting game on the 22nd of October. All right, Tom, thanks again. We'll see you next week. And for all of you, thanks for watching or listening, and thanks to acrepro.com.